Hey everybody, Coach Sean the Rip Grandpa back with part 3 on my series from the sugar diet. Inside today's video, I'm going to try to knock this out in under 10 minutes, okay? So the number one misconception of the sugar diet, how to start it based on where you're at. Do you have a lot of weight to lose, a little weight to lose? Are you already lean? The number one reason people fail on the sugar diet, this is not what you think it is, I can guarantee it. And then our personal results from the first 4 days full eating. I'll provide a full day of eating of my food that I ate for an entire day as well. Now I know 4 days is a very short time, right? So got to do this for another couple weeks to really get an assessment. But for those of you who don't know, my last couple videos really took off. I started my first video with the war on carbs, and then the second video, both of them are starting to get some virality. So they're really taking off. The comments are going crazy. I'm really grateful for everybody engaging and all the new subscribers. So let's keep that conversation going below in the comment section. Questions, feedback, getting a ton of great resources from smart people. All the questions are really helping me come up with content to continue this conversation so we can all help each other. And so that segues into no trolls, please. I mean, if you're part of the keto or carnivore cult, I say cult, and you want to hate on people in the comments and think we're crazy for trying this, then just keep scrolling your trolling somewhere else, please. We're here to support each other. There's 100 ways to skin the cat. I'm the head of the over 50 division for Superhuman, which is the #1 online fitness coaching brand in the world. It's very high level. It's very expensive. And we have transformed and got over 6,000 men six-pack abs. And I can tell you that there's no one size fits all, no cookie cutter. There's 100 ways to skin the cat. And when guys come on board, we onboard them. We do a questionnaire and we customize everything for them based on their goal, their lifestyle, and adherence. Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters is adherence. And that's why my wife Karen and I have carb cycled for the last 20 plus years, because you don't have to eliminate food groups and it's much easier to adhere to. So with that being said, let's talk about a summary of the sugar diet. Just a quick little summary of exactly what it is if you're new here, and maybe a little bit different twist than what Cole Robinson describes. Because Cole's going to scream at you, "Hey, fatty!" He's going to tell you, sugar will make you burn fat. It'll turn you into a fat burning furnace, but it will only do this in the absence, right, of fats and protein, right? And so for me, that's kind of the way, the Rip Grandpa version of what I would say is when fats and carbs are eaten together too frequently and in too large of volumes, it will lead to more fat storage. And this kind of, segues right into what he says. He's talking about, sugar without fat or protein present will turn you into a fat burning furnace. Now, this has a lot to do with FGF21, and this is a hormone I'll talk about more in the future. But what happened with me back in 2008, 2009-ish, it was after my wife was diagnosed with colorectal cancer, and the treatments forced her into early menopause, and she stored all kinds of fat up here in her upper region and in her upper hips. It was weird. And all the normal dieting stuff that we would do just didn't work like it used to. And so I developed carb cycling, and she lost over 23 pounds straight from her midsection in her upper hip area. And that's how I developed a product called 4Cycle Solution, led to me selling over 1 million ebooks. And I came up with a concept back in 2008, 2009 that rhymes very, very closely with this. And this right here, this rule that I'm about ready to share with you is worth watching this video alone. And if you just go apply this rule to your diet, no matter what diet you follow, it will serve you very well and you'll lose more weight. So when carbs are up, fat should be down. And when fats are up, carbs should be down. So if you're having a meal where you're having a starch or a fruit, I personally recommend that you have a leaner cut of protein and lean sources of protein, and you keep the fats down in that meal. Now, vice versa. If you're having a ribeye or a chicken thigh, some type of fatty cut of animal meat, or the meal is very high in fat from oils and other stuff, keep those starches and fruits low. By doing this, you're going to consume way less calories automatically without even realizing it, and you're going to avoid the fat-storing metabolic nightmare of fats and starches together in the bloodstream. More on this in coming videos. But the real thing that the sugar diet does is it converts your body into a glucose metabolism versus what keto and carnivore do, which is a fatty acid metabolism. Now, there's pros and cons to both. But I think a glucose metabolism is much more fun, much easier to adhere to, and ultimately is really going to help with your insulin sensitivity down the road and allow you to maintain a healthy weight. With that being said, most people don't realize that sugar actually is a trigger for producing one of your #1 antioxidants that your body produces called glutathione, and it's also glucose is also responsible for producing thyroid hormones by converting T4 to T3 in the liver, right? So thyroid hormones are a glycoprotein. They need glucose from carbs in order to convert to T4 to T3. Every cell in your body has a receptor for thyroid hormones. So this is why people who do extended periods of the keto diet or carnivore diet a lot of times end up needing thyroid medication. So with that being said, let's dive right into the number one biggest misconception, which is the types of sugar. People hear sugar diet and they go off because they hear the word sugar because it has such a negative kind of, association with everything. But when we remove sugar for a couple decades from the American diet, obesity went up. So something's not right there. We'll talk more about this in the future. But there's a huge difference between the types of sugar. You have donuts, cake, pastries, and high fructose corn syrup. Now, I don't know where this plays into this, highly processed, obviously. I'm going to do some more research on this. But when you compare this to things like fruit, honey, raw cane sugar, there's going to be a huge difference. I mean, if you think about raw cane sugar in general, it's the same thing as when we extract olive oil from olives or we extract fruit juice from fruits. So why would this natural source of energy from simple sugars found in the most easily obtainable food on the earth, fruit God made, be harmful for us? Just food for thought, something to consider. Now, how do you start? Now, this is not medical advice. It's merely what I would do. I'm not a doctor. I'm a fitness pro and an educator. And I've eaten lots of carbs, just so you know, for the last 20 years to stay lean year round. Here I am at 40, 41, 44, 46, 48, and 50 years old. So if you're new here, I like to share that, not to impress you, just to impress upon you, you're in good hands. So if you're overweight or you're obese, here's what I recommend right here. 3 days per week, I would experiment with fruit-only days or even a juice fasting day, and apple juice seems to be the most popular. So 3 days of the week, I would do that, where it's just fruit only or a combination of fruit and juice or just juice fasting only. Karen and I are going to experiment with this and we'll report back. Then I recommend 3 days of sugar fasting, which I call sugar loading. I don't know why he calls it sugar fasting. You're not fasting from sugar, you're fasting from fats and protein. But with that being said, I would experiment with 3 days of sugar fasting with protein backloading after 5 p.m.ish. And veggies are fine too, and so is fruit at night. Now, if you have a lot of weight to lose, you're overweight or obese, you want to avoid those starches later in the day until you have about 20 pounds to lose, and then we can start bringing starches back in. And that's what Karen and I are doing because we're already fairly lean. So, and then I would give yourself one free day just to give yourself a break. Don't binge your stuff or go crazy, but just give yourself a free day to do what you want. And then you can maybe turn that into a carnivore or a keto day if you wanted to. Have some fatty cuts of meat. For me personally, I'll probably break the rules and have the fat starches together, right? I'll typically have pizza or pasta with meatballs, These are cheap food, pretty much. But 1 or 2 times a week is not going to kill you, especially if you're following this protocol the other 6 days of the week. Now, if you're under 25 pounds to lose or you're already on the leaner side, I recommend 5 days of fruit fasting and healthy sugar until 5 p.m.-ish. And then we're going to go ahead and bring in lean protein sources. Lean is key. That is key. Write that down. Lean. Has to be leaner protein sources, right? Because we're trying to keep fat grams around 30 grams or under per day. Starches are fine, and so are fruits, and so are veggies. Remember, fats under 30 to 40 grams a day, unless it's a free day. Reason number 3 is the number one reason people fail on any diet. And this is a little bit different topic, but I think it's important to discuss because your belief system can really block your results. At least 50% of your results is determined by your BS. And I say your belief system. So what's between your ears and what you think is going to determine 50% of your results. Now, I'll share a couple of examples really quick. I'm probably going to go over the 10 minutes here, so thank you for hanging in there. If you're hanging in there, if you're getting something out of this, please hit a like or a share or drop a comment if you have questions. So the first thing they did was a smoothie study where they gave 2 groups of people a smoothie, and it was like a 300-calorie smoothie. They told one group it was a 160-calorie diet shake. They told the other group it was a 550-calorie fattening shake. They created fake labels. They had them drink the shake while they looked at the label. In the group that drank the diet shake, 30, 60, 90 minutes later, they did blood work and blood samples on them. They released almost double the ghrelin, which is your hunger hormone, in their blood simply because they thought what they were drinking was a diet shake, where the group that thought it was a fattening shake didn't release hardly any ghrelin because they thought it was a fattening shake. So just their thoughts determined the outcomes and their metabolic and hormonal response. The second example is the maid study. They took two groups of maids, took one group, and simply informed them that their job was good for them and met the Surgeon General's requirement for exercise on a daily basis. So every day when they were cleaning hotel rooms, they were thinking to themselves, wow, I'm meeting the daily exercise needs I need. The other group was uninformed. Okay, they did all the health markers on them, and the group that was simply informed lost more weight and had better health markers across the board just because in their head every day of what their thoughts were. The last example is Joe Dispenza and the placebo effect. If you want to geek out on brain stuff, it's a great book. It goes very deep, but an example in there is they had one group of people, men, do a bicep curl. The other group visualized it, and the group that visualized it actually gained muscle and got stronger. And it wasn't quite as much as the group that actually did it, but it was very close, proving once and for all that about 50% of our results, if not more, is going to be determined by our belief. So with that being said, hopefully that will help you get your head in the right spot and be open-minded, because that's going to be half the battle to this, is believing that you can do it, right? When you believe something, you're already halfway there. So what happened to our bodies the first 4 days? Well, we made about 95% healthy food choices. Again, there's a huge difference. We're not eating gummy bears or jelly beans or any of that stuff. I talked about Frosted Flakes in one of my videos. I'm not doing that right now. I want to keep it clean just so I can get a real assessment of how this stuff works. And I'll add that stuff back in later when I want to have a little bit more fun. I'm down 4 pounds. And so I kept upping my carbs 100 grams every day. So yesterday I finally made it to like 350 grams of carbs, and I'm down 4 pounds in 5 days. So I'm going to keep carb loading throughout the weekend here because I shouldn't be down that much. I'm very lean. So it's just interesting to see how my body responds. Karen has not weighed herself yet. She's kind of paranoid about it. She wants to wait a full week. Now, my REM, I had the highest REM ever 2 nights ago. 3 hours of REM. I've never had that before. So interesting observation. But last night I had struggle sleeping. So stay tuned. I'll keep reporting on this. I felt like I had morning grogginess, right? But then when I get up, I just feel so energized. It's an interesting feeling. I'll share more here in a second. And then my hunger, it's interesting. It's like I'm getting hungry right after I eat. Not right after, but like 2 hours after I eat a huge bowl of fruit with honey and sugar sprinkled on it. I'm getting really hungry. So it's just an interesting observation that I'm going to continue to monitor, because it seems like no matter how much I eat on the fruit side, I'm actually still losing weight. So it's really wild to see this. Now, the other thing I'm noticing is my NEAT, my non-exercise activity thermogenesis, through the roof, like walking. So if you don't know what NEAT is, just means the exercise, like me moving my hands right now, gesturing, tapping your feet, walking throughout the day, moving around. That's your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. But I noticed, like before my workout the other day, I was doing a dead hang, right? Doing just dead hangs, good for your shoulders and your back. And I was dead hang for about a minute. All of a sudden, about 30 seconds in, I was doing knee ups for my abs, and I was like not even thinking about it. Like, what am I doing right now? Because I just have so much energy. And then I almost felt on the first day like I had a little bit of a sugar crash, but then I got into the gym and I did a couple sets, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe how energized I was and how massive my pump was when I started working out. So interesting observations that we'll keep you posted on. So before I end this video, 14 minutes in, still watching. Time's our most precious commodity. Super grateful for your time. Trying to talk fast here. So again, if you want to speed this up, you can put it on 1.5 speed, right, to get through it a little quicker. But I think it's important to provide the right context. So if you stick around right now, let's talk about my meals. My first meal, this was all day yesterday. I had started out with 1.5 bananas, 1 cup of raspberries. I drizzled honey and a sprinkle of sugar on it. My second meal was a tangerine, 1 cup of blueberries, 1 cup of strawberries, a half a teaspoon or tablespoon of honey, and a half a teaspoon of sugar. Meal 3 was post-workout. 1 banana, half cup of strawberries, 3/4 cup blueberries, half cup fat-free Greek yogurt. That's key, fat-free, right? So now we're bringing in protein. 1/2 cup of low-fat cottage cheese, only going to come in around 2 grams of fat. 1 scoop of whey protein isolate, 1 crumbled up rice cake, super low in calories, could probably did 2 of those, a 1/4 cup of liquid egg whites. So I pour that liquid egg whites on top of it just to stir it all in and give it a good pudding consistency. And then I left out the honey and the sugar on that one because I'm adding in protein sources in the rice cakes. Now for dinner, we had sea bass, a sweet potato, and asparagus. And then pre-bed pudding was, again, fat-free, a dollop of fat-free Greek yogurt mixed with 1 scoop of whey isolate. And then I put cherries and berries on that. And again, liquid egg whites for consistency. So taking it home, we're 15 minutes in. The one last thing I want to mention is that way back in 1998, I placed first runner-up grand champion in the Body for Life contest. Okay, you can see the transformation here. Again, this is nothing too impressive, but I want to prove a point here. I was eating 6 meals a day, super low fat and super high carb. And so what happens is if you look at guys like Lee Haney, Mike Metzer, these are the leanest, most muscular bodies on the planet. Yes, PEDs come in, performance enhancing drugs do play a role. But every single one of these guys that step on stage for a bodybuilding show, guess where their fats are? In the basement. Typically, it's going to be 10 to 15% of their calories are from fat. 60% plus is from carbs because carbs are so muscle sparing and they, help slow down protein turnover, so you don't need as much protein when your carbs are sky high like that. So maybe there's a little hint there that we could apply here because it rhymes super closely with what we're talking about here, the sugar diet. So thanks for watching and God bless.